You're tuned in to the MtG Cable cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering Finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seatbelts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cable cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabalcast, and this week we are doing our annual preview of the following year, thanks to the lovely chart that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro released that said, hey, here's how we're taking a shit on everything you love next year. So with that started, here's our set preview, starting with Ravnica Remastered.
Yep, which is the first in the graphic that we have up. Moving left to right, we're going through Q1 through Q3 2024. After that, we just have code names. So we start the year off bright and early with a remastered set, and this is basically what we've seen before in Dominaria Remastered and Time Spiral Remastered, and that's kind of the end of it. Everything we know so far is pretty limited but expected. There's going to be one release promo. It's Niv Mizzet the Firemind in Retro Border. We know the Shocks are coming back. We know we're getting serialized versions of Retro Border cards as well as Retro Border cards non-serialized. We know we're going to get borderless cards. And the collector boosters will also have borderless anime art. That's
more waifus.
Yep, that's
just what the game needed.
Yep, that's basically it. This spans, I think it's all 13 or something like that. Ravnica sets.
Yeah.
291 cards. It's I think that's a medium set technically, or somewhere between a medium and a large if you remember three set block structure. Woohoo.
Yeah, I mean, cool. I'm excited for the limited environment.
Yeah. Because
the guilds did a really good job of referencing themselves throughout the multi-set release. You know, the Simic is always counters in some way. Mm-hmm. Azorius is always control in some way. Like it was just cool. So I'm kind of excited for that. But that's the end of it.
Yeah, not a lot to go on. This is just kind of like a holdover. It comes out in early January. Looks like the launch party is January 12th, and then after that, it's straight into the second set in the list, which is Murders at Karlov Mansion, which releases in February of 2024, and we don't know anything about the release date. What we do know about the set, though, is that it will take place on Ravnica, so we're going from Ravnica Remastered back to, and staying there, with Murders at Karlov Mansion, but from what we've heard, it won't be anything like the Ravnica we know, so basically we'll be outside the city of the guilds, to see what the rest of the plane has to offer. This is as they stated, a top-down designed murder mystery set full of tropes, and what the set has to offer in regards to actual playable cards outside of the pre-release events or any kind of specialty stuff is really up in the air right now. There's not a whole lot that we understand about what's going on, but cool.
You know what I've never once said in my life? I can't wait to go to a murder mystery dinner. Why the fuck would you put it in my card game?
I would revise that statement because the movie Clue is fantastic.
The movie Clue is fantastic, all right? That was amazing, but John Cleese can make anything good.
I mean, so can, why am I blanking on his name? Oh my god.
Tim Curry?
Yeah, Tim Curry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chris, yeah, that movie was amazing. The cast was phenomenal. I would absolutely go to see that as a murder mystery. I just don't. This is... it's vampires and stuff. Cool. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of mystery-solving mechanic with guessing a card in your opponent's hand, and it's going to be garbage.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine we're going to spend a lot of time poking around weird abilities that the Orzhov Guild has, because I'm pretty sure that's where the Karlov stuff comes from, is the Orzhov Guild, and I could be wrong about that. And, you know, we had Haunt the first time around in Ravnica, then when we were doing 3-set blocks, and the second time around we had Extort, because they were that kind of guild.
Yeah.
Then the third time was kind of muddy. Unless it was the Ghost Council stuff, then it had like weird phasing.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think this kind of sets the trend for like the next couple of sets we're going to see, which is just the reliance on top-down tropes. And I mean, it harkens back to Innistrad. Originally, where they wanted to do some of the most popular and like agnostically enjoyable sci-fi or like high fantasy tropes. So we had the werewolves, the ghost spirits, whatever you want to do, vampires, and really define those characteristics. So sure, put that stuff on another plane, call it a day, and we just kind of move forward with the trope idea in the next standard simple. We'll get there in the moment. At the end of Q1, though, we have our first Universes Beyond of the year. And what I believe is just going to be a running set of Universes Beyond products targeted at like 40-year-old white dudes. And it's Fallout. Cool, again, I guess. I think everybody's really excited for a Big Brother card, right? That's one of those giant clanky-ass machines.
That was Bioshock.
Bioshock. See, I haven't played either.
See,
Tunnel
they gave
Snakes,
Dog
is that
Meat
a
a
Fallout
brain.
thing?
That's fucking stupid. I'm sorry.
But you've got the bobbleheads, the cola stuff, the Nuka-Cola, like 5 or 6 games in main canon, then like New Vegas, which I think is like
side canon, tactics, all that. Here's the thing that I'm looking forward to. If there are 2 companies that can fuck up a product real good, it's Bethesda and Wizards of the Coast.
Boy, howdy.
So I cannot wait to see how awful that set is.
Yeah.
And on that note, there was an announcement made a couple of days ago that what the actual fuck, this is how you know this is getting out of hand. They're announcing Universes Beyond Marvel for 2025, and Fallout, mark my words, will be the start of it. In the announcement, there is some very key wording that they use to refer to Universes Beyond.
Okay.
And it is these tentpole sets will build on the tradition of incorporating fan favorite characters from world-class brands into Magic the Gathering. That is not good.
Look, at the end of the day, I was thinking about this. I spent a lot of time. What it comes down to is you're going to actually spend a lot of mental energy divining what somebody is playing by look in paper. That's going to be a problem. But even as things stand, with multiple printings just across different sets of the same cards, you don't have to memorize all of the art. When somebody says, like, take for example, Serum Visions. If you discount the Secret Lair stuff, there's still like 2 or 3 arts of that card, or Sleight of Hand, right? Yeah. That's another one. Somebody announces what that spell is, and you know what it does with enough experience. So it's going to be difficult for a while because you're going to have to expend a lot of energy, for sure. It's going to be mentally taxing, but at the end of the day, reskinning the game is like reskinning the game. When it comes down to like you're casting cards from multiple universes beyond alongside one another, it gets a little weird. Even, and this goes in both directions. I'm talking about this on Monday night. When you look at what's left over from Lord of the Rings in formats, Delighted Halfling, the One Ring, Orcish Bowmasters, right? You're not casting Frodo Baggins. You're not casting Samwise or anything like that. The effects on those cards are so generic that they don't have to be named after anything in the Lord of the Rings. Orcish Bowmasters by name is a card that could have just been in another set. Delighted Halfling could have been some kind of something from Lauren. One of those little nerds. A Kithkin. Delighted Kithkin, right?
Yep.
Easy enough. The One Ring is the one standout. So it gets a little odd when you're going to be casting cards like that, and you're going to be casting Spider-Man alongside the One Ring, alongside like the soda machine from Fallout,
the Nuka-Cola, and then not to mention, you have to have if they put Gundam Exia in this game is over. But not to mention, you have to be so mechanically, flavorfully unique for the universe.
Yeah,
it's such pigeonhole design to chase pennies, and I get it. The game's been around for 30 years, so innovation is hard now. Hire better designers. Do something.
Yeah.
Because you're like this. You are making the game so much worse because you're watering it down. When everything is special, nothing is special. That's what it feels like with cards
get that.
Now.
Ellie, the nice part about the Fallout set is that as of right now, and this is my understanding of it, it releases in March, and it's only commander decks and collector boosters.
Yeah.
So we're not actually getting a direct to modern set. This has the ability to impact Legacy Vintage, and Commander. So if it just kind of is a wet fart like Doctor Who was, then awesome. Like, great. We might see a couple of cards from Doctor Who break out because they're synergistic with existing strategies and Legacy, but that's what happens when you want to make cards that interact with casting spells from exile or not from your hand or whatever. Stuff like that. So at the end of the day, Fallout, and we'll talk about Assassin's Creed later on, I feel the same about them. Like, didn't play either of them. I know people that did. I know people that enjoy them. So I'm just kind of shooting from the hip on it. Like, but my understanding is that you enjoy these franchises because you played them for this long, which means you're of a very certain age group playing this game. This isn't for, like, the Dana Fishers of Magic, who are like, what is she now? Still, like, she's still 12? Like, whatever.
She's always 12 in my mind. Yeah. Yes.
Like, this isn't a set for the intended age group of Magic. If, like, per the packaging, it's the intended age group of the tournament crowd.
Yeah. She's currently 13.
Okay, there you go. So from Fallout, we move into Outlaws of Thunder Junction on our little slide, and this is basically the beginning of Q2. So we're looking at, what is this, March, maybe April?
April, probably.
And this is just another top-down design. It's a Western set. People have been asking for this for a while. WotC's finally giving in, and this is probably the one I feel the most comfortable with overall because, like, pop culture is very cyclical, and we are coming back around to a point now where, like, Westerns or, like, that kind of culture are gaining traction again. There's, like, renewed interest in it compared to, like, the 90s and early 2000s when, like, our parents...
It was indie film and that was it, you know? Yeah.
Right. And, like, the idea of the spaghetti Western is still a bit passe, but it's just coming back around, and so, like, cool. You finally get the set you want. It is...
timed well. Great.
Yeah. My main concern with this is that Magic has always abstained from certain iconography and certain... aggressive elements, so it's going to be really hard to do a Western set without a gun of some sort. How are you going to have a sheriff, without a gun? Like, I don't think there's a single Western that doesn't involve somebody getting shot, so I'm very curious to see how this is going to be handled. Yeah. But they're just, again, like Murders at Karlov Mansion, troping it along. So you'll have your outlaws, you'll have your law enforcement, you'll probably have some kind of miners that get stuck in a pit, and maybe a horse or two. Oh, I hope there's a saloon.
I do too. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of, like, environment setting, like a plane, like Plane Chase or something, where, here you go. But, we'll see.
Yeah, like, people are getting up in arms with it because the imagery on the set has, like, what looks like a fox planeswalker or something like that, or as a hero. Like, who cares? Yeah, exactly. Whatever. Like, we've already had foxes. Like, we went to Kamigawa twice, and the Kitsune were there both times. Like, how mad can you get about this?
Yeah.
Like, nobody cares. Like, people enjoy it.
Doesn't actually matter. Stop pretending it does.
Yep, pretty much. Now, coming out of that, we have squarely in the middle of the year the set that will probably fuck up the game the most, and that is Modern Horizons 3. If Modern Horizons 1 and 2 are to really set an example.
I think so. And all of the set design for the last 10 years. Yeah, this set is, it's... I was talking to some friends, actually, about Eternal Weekend and how we're excited to go. And they said... unironically, one of them did. Basically, I think it's great because I don't care about this format until the next Horizon set because it's totally going to shit on Legacy anyways.
Yep.
And they're not wrong.
Our concern was the Doctor Who set and the Lord of the Rings Commander product.
Yeah.
Because EW was announced well before those products were fully spoiled. And if anything was going to wreck the format, Commander sets will, and because there's a track record for it. We have True Name Nemesis, Toxic Deluge, those kind of ruin the formats. You can look at Plane Chase. Scavenging Use also came in through Commander product. Then you have Plane Chase that brought us Charlotte's Agent, which was a mainstay in Legacy for a fairly long time. And Modern Horizons has the Pitch Elementals. 2 had the Pitch Elementals. It has Ragavan. It has Grist. what else is in there? Dragon Reach Channeler, Murktide
Yeah.
Regent. Basically, a ton of cards that are...
Anything that's fucked the format in the last 2 years
Yep.
probably came from one of these sets.
Exactly. So this is the one that has the most impact and probably the one that needs to be paid attention to the most because it has the opportunity to impact the largest amount of formats on the whole, insofar as like overall view, finance, or otherwise. It's probably the set that will do the best.
Yeah.
Water Horizon, Stu blew everything else out of the water. It's hard to imagine that the 2 universes beyond that we have announced here do better because they are kind of, like I said, niche for a very specific age group. Meanwhile, Horizon sets are meant to integrate directly into the game and every card be impactful in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Then from there, we have our second universes beyond set in Assassin's Creed. Quote, a Ubisoft original, which is kind of interesting because Fallout and nothing else really has a tagline like this. So, good for them, I guess. This one is just, for me, wildly off the wall. Assassin's Creed will be modern legal. That's the note we have. That's it. That's kind of the story on this one. Whereas Fallout is not, it seems.
Yeah.
So that will be curious. And we don't know what games they're pulling from. If we'll see Michael Fassbender on a card or not, if they'll reference the movie. But, like, cool. There's a storyline for this, but it's basically written by Ubisoft, and it's just a generic overview of Assassin's Creed. Yeah. Yeehaw.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. This one...
It seems like a reach because it's a franchise which hasn't been super popular for a while now.
Yeah.
It's just very strange to see it.
Yeah.
But, hey, whatever, I guess.
Yeah, you got to make your reaches, and because it broke out into mainstream with the movie, you know, I assume it's just kind of doing whatever. Like, I don't even know how well the newest one, Valhalla, was received.
That was fine. The new one that they're coming out with went back to the old school. We're just in one city, which is nice, but it hasn't sold well, right? This is one that, to me, when they say the increasing cost of universes beyond is why our profits aren't better, this right here is exactly the reason why. Because of IPs like this that are just not good.
Yeah, this is one of those things where it feels like they could have optioned a lot of different things, but they chose the safest one. Like, if they had optioned God of War, that probably has a larger audience attached to it. But that IP is, again, littered with iconography that Magic just probably wants to stay away from. Similarly, Gears of War was another franchise that it did not last that long, but like people are just like fervently attached to.
Yeah.
That could have been an option.
Look, it made Mad World of War songs, so I'm cool with it.
There's they could have shot for the moon. With Halo, right, and put something else like that in here too. Yeah. Over Assassin's Creed, and you have all those players in that player base, so it could have just been the safe play in regards to iconography they want to work with. Yeah. We do have rogues. We have made assassin tokens before. We do have like the same or similar elements to Assassin's Creed that already exist in games, so it seems like an easy plug-in. But again, it's just
should be
one of those things. Is just like, okay, so who exactly is this for? Because the core audience for the game, as defined by the organization, is probably not playing Assassin's Creed. It seems like this is a wink and a nod to a very specific portion of the player base that just doesn't care. After that comes Bloom Barrel. This one, I think, this and the following set, I think, are probably, for me, some of the more interesting standard sets because it's something we'll talk about in regards to both of them. So Bloom Barrow is a plane made entirely of animals. There will be no humans.
No humans.
On this plane, and I think that's kind of a long time coming.
Yeah. So I think it looks great. I mean, it's design perspective. I think taking some time away from what in 60 card formats has been the preeminent tribe for a while now is good. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see what they can do with frankly, I said it was hard to innovate in 30 years. This is, again, something they've never done before.
Nope.
And I'm going to say this really slowly for anyone that's watching. I am actually excited to see what happens with this set.
There you go.
It looks like Redwall. I love those books. I'm excited to see what it does. It's also firmly in the new rotation window for design.
Yes.
Which I guess, based on prior experience, we'll get a new rotation in 2025 Q3 or 4 or early 26 Q1 or 2.
Because why not? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. No, I like this idea. Mirage is always this interesting kind of set where it seemed like they wanted to be more on the ground with like animal creature types rather than humans, but they really didn't know how to center things not around that tribe. The Planeswalkers existed in name only, so we didn't have an idea of how to move around, and then in time we start to anthropomorphize various animals. Like you look at I don't know if the Leonin were the first, like Miri kind of represented the cat tribe.
Yeah.
She's not a Leonin, but the Leonins were finally given a name in Mirrodin, and then from there, immediately afterwards, we have the Kitsune and the Nezumi on Kamigawa. And we start to like feel that in Magic, where it's not just a game that
beast
centers
or slivers. It's
Slivers is a good example. Beast, like, not so much, because they're we're still running through the forest. It's hard to kind of imagine them coalescing around ideals and becoming their own
sentient force. Whereas
right.
slivers sort of show the beginning of that evolution, and then later on, as the game evolves, we get these more evolved creature literal types.
And Ajani kind of bridges that gap a little bit, and gets us to kind of where we're going here with Bloombarrow, which I think is going to be really interesting when we're just looking at this kind of world, and reshapes the way we get to think about the game and kind of helps push us forward. After that is Duskmourn. This is the last set we have an actual name for. After this, it becomes Codenames. And iconography for this set is wildly different than that for Bloombarrow, because it is a top-down, like, horror trope set. So we're going back to that now that we were talking about earlier with Murders at Karlov Mansion, which is the murder mystery trope, Thunder Junction, Wild West trope, Bloombarrow, ? No tropes really, and then Duskmourn is they say it's horror tropes, and cite specifically slasher films and the Amityville horror, which, and I'll say this right now, are not the same trope.
No, they're not.
They're not.
Not even remotely.
But that's kind of what they're going for. They just say modern horror. Cool. It's a very big bucket to pull stuff from, and they wanted to have, it's modern horror with a 70s or 80s vibe, which I don't quite get. It seems like you're pulling at this thread a little too hard, but sure, whatever. We'll go back to the trope. We'll see how it looks. Again, it just kind of feels like they're relying on the strength of Innistrad design and how they got there for another one of these sets, especially because a lot of that iconography is overlapped. Cool, interesting. To me, what I like best about this is that we actually get to see the return of large story arcs.
Yeah. And
while we don't know a lot about Duskmourn compared to Bloombarrow, what we do know is that they're part of something called the Dragonstorm arc. And it is a 1-year storyline that will follow the Omen Path arc. Yeah. And it is the second part of a 3-year story arc that has been codenamed Metronome. So the sets in the Dragonstorm arc are Bloombarrow and Duskmourn, and then we move into the codenames. We know what Death Race is. The codename was Tennis, and we now know Return to Tarkiris after that, and it's called Ultimate. And this is all based on like sports with quotes around it that you play in college. Like hacky sack should have been one of these kind of things.
Man, that would have been great.
And this is so Dragonstorm. Omen Path will each be their own 1-year arc, and it will contain a number of sets and hopefully through lines that make sense and kind of bring back the idea of stories in a block, but in a format that works for WotC. Like, you don't want to have to worry about developing a 3-set block, a 2-set block, where you're drafting them both at the same time. Your keywords have to work. The cards have to push and pull on one another to make the storyline and the gameplay make sense. Cool. Do it this way then. You draft each one on its own. You craft your own draft experience, your own keywords, whatever. The cards don't have to pull on one another necessarily, but there can be story beats that you use like they have been for a while with those identifying cards, which are generally pretty bad.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing here is that we kind of know storyline-wise where the game is going beyond what we have.
Yes.
So I am very excited to see how Tron gets more toys to play with, because fuck that deck. I know you love it. I'm sorry. It's terrible. I
mean, it is fun to play. It is miserable to play against, and I understand both of those. Man, at the end of the day, though, when we see 2024, we know what Q4 has. It'll have the rest of the Dragonstorm arc in it. Yeah. So hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we're doing 5 sets, then we have one more. Otherwise, Q3 is a little stuffed.
Yeah.
The way this looks. But overall, it'll be an interesting year from a play perspective. I don't really think anything is going to impact anything harder than Modern Horizons. If I was going to be putting my money anywhere to just sit on singles or sealed, it's going to be Modern Horizons again, because that's the set that's just going to do it. I'm probably not going to buy into Fallout or Assassin's Creed until I know what's in there.
Yeah,
and even then, I might not actually buy anything from the Fallout set in particular. I might just pick up some singles.
Yeah.
I'm excited to continue playing the game based on these sets, excluding Modern Horizons. I'm only interested in Modern Horizons from a finance standpoint, and knowing that we're going to be bringing Standard back, or attempting to bring Standard back as a vendor, I'm still going to... It's going to be a bell curve for me. And the top of the bell curve in money spent is going to be Modern Horizons. I'm just going to dump into Modern Horizons to crack, to resell for singles, and then sell the sealed off that. Tuck a little bit away because we know it'll probably be long print, but there'll be short-term profits to be picked up off the sealed, so I'll pull a little back and then just kind of ride it out and then figure out how Standard works from here on out, because I can count on people buying Modern Horizons.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the way I look at it. I know some LGSs, mine included, carry secret layers in store. So like any of the secret layers attached to the stuff might pop up. If I'm a vendor, I might try and sit on some Fallout or some Assassin's Creed for some long-term interest, but I don't think it's going to be like the Warhammer stuff.
No, and I think the other thing, and going back to the Marvel announcement, especially for Universes Beyond, is if these are tentpole sets, quote, you can just expect them to be printed at will.
Yeah.
So I think that ship has somewhat sailed, unfortunately, but that's where we're at. Mm-hmm. That's the junk wax era. So hey.
Yeah, no, I get it. The only question I really have about all this for an LGS is, are you more excited to have yet another Ravnica set be draftable in the remastered, or does that one just kind of fall out because Time Spiral Remastered fell flat and Dom Remastered was also not the hit? Or I don't think it was the hit
it was
expected
not.
It to be.
I think the big difference is that Ravnica scratches an itch for effectively 3 generations of Magic players.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit more excitement around that, and also, obviously, Shocklands are used in pretty much every format now that they're legal in. So getting retro border versions of those makes some people happy. But I expect it's going to be like the others. There will be a huge hype wave at the beginning. I will say, I think serialized cards existing in the set hurts more than anything. Just because obviously it depresses all the single prices when you're trying to open serialized Shocklands.
Yeah.
Because 100, 125 people can have a playset for their modern deck in the world, assuming they stay numbered to 500. But that's something that I think is actually bad for it from an LGS perspective, because we have to sell it quick.
Okay.
If we don't, we're going to be stuck with it after those prices start cratering, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It just does.
Yeah. The rest of this, I assume, is just very difficult aside from Modern Horizons, right? That one's obviously the standout. It's hard to really kind of figure out if you don't know how Standard's going to play, especially because we've never really seen trope-based design like this. And I keep saying, except for Innistrad, based on Innistrad, because that was like the best trope-designed set. You can look at Call Time and think about like Norse mythology in that set, and it played out a little bit. It wasn't too bad. It was interesting. If that's as light as they're going to lean into the tropey stuff, then maybe.
Sure.
Maybe the side quests that we're going to be given in Murders at Karlov Mansion won't be as obnoxious as they could be, or overt. With Innistrad, it was just light touches on flavor into the greater world. We didn't get eldritch horror stuff until we went back the second time. We did get some very overt elements, though, for the vampire and the werewolf trope. But other than that, it was more about the world building for that set and how everything felt. The art, the style, everything that made Innistrad so revered for what it is. The rest of this has the opportunity to do that, but because they might be too heavy-handed with the tropes. We'll just really have to see how it shakes out with Murders at Karlov Mansion. And my assumption is that we'll start getting spoilers. Let's see. Ixalan started today, 3 days, 1 day after Fallout, 3 days after Fallout, which is a set that's coming out 4 months from now.
Yeah.
5 months from now. So probably in 2 weeks we'll start getting spoilers from Murders at Karlov Mansion. So we'll be able to figure this one out. But is there anything you're actually excited about from an LGS perspective, setting aside Modern Horizons 3 then? If it's not Ravnica Remastered.
Yeah, setting aside Modern Horizons 3 and Ravnica Remastered, we're excited for Murders at Karlov Manor, and that is specifically because of play boosters. Because after that, we eliminate a SKU and don't have to worry about it as much. It makes it a lot easier for an LGS to purchase product and know what we're getting and know what we can sell through, because collector boosters have been stable for a lot of LGSs. They know how many they're going to sell every set, but having to nitpick what is a good limited set that we'll do a lot of drafts for, what is a set where we'll sell a lot of set boosters, it cuts out a lot of that guesswork. So I think that's really helpful.
Got it. So you're more excited about a logistical update rather than looking forward to player interaction. Oh, I get it. It makes sense. No, so I would have thought if you were just going to look at these sets, it would have either been Murders at Karlov Mansion, because again, it's sticking around a Ravnica, and those are always player hit sets. Same thing with Innistrad. I'm I guess they wanted to say Zendikars. I don't know. Yeah. But if not that, then Bloom Barrel, because of how unique it's going to be.
Yeah. I think Karlov is also kind of a missed opportunity, because they should have released it in October.
Yes.
I think sets like that are great. That's why I'm hoping, frankly, Duskmourn is an October release, if it is the traditional modern whatever the fuck horror set.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And it's the end of Q3, so we're on that border. Yeah, it could be late October, early November, and it could definitely hit that mark for sure. I didn't even think about that. I was just looking at there's nothing in Q4 on this slate, so I don't think if we get another standard set or we get another supplemental or whatever it is, I'm not really sure. Pioneer Masters. Oh no, Duskmourn and House of Horror is listed, and Q4. That makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be mid-November or something. Yeah, we'll miss it by a little bit, but the spoopy season will carry over.
Good.
All right. So as far as 2024 is concerned, then, is there anything else you want to talk about from this look? There's really nothing else.
No.
In front of us. Have you even been solicited for Ravnica Remastered yet?
It should be a week or two away.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you'll actually know what numbers are for that set?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Because that's a kerfluffle.
Also, distros have been kind of withholding some of those prices. They'll be like, hey, how many would you like allocation-wise?
Yeah.
And then giving prices after the fact. It's been very strange.
Have you been solicited for Karlov Manor yet? I would assume not. If that's... No. Okay. That at least... Okay, that makes more sense. Just the way everything happened with the Amazon listings. I wasn't sure if you guys eventually got solicited or not.
No, distros were like, yeah, we didn't know about that either.
All right, fair enough. All right, so cut over to picks?
Yes. Right. However, it is 12:01 on my wife's birthday. She would murder me if I didn't wake her up.
Okay, I'll pause recording, I guess.
Be right back. Sorry.
Right. No problem. This is staying in, though.
All right. I am ready whenever.
Okay, so did you pick first last week, or did I?
I believe you did.
All right, so take it away.
All right, so speaking of things not getting better and things changing and being awful, my pick is a market call out this week. I'm going to cite something I've picked a couple times in the past, a couple cards actually. Excuse me, Emberwild Caliph and Grim Feast. Slumlording the reserve list is over. It's just gone. We can stop. Slumlording Sarkhan's Unsealing is the future. But reason I say this, if you take a look at Emberwild Caliph, similar to a lot of trash cards from the reserve list, we'll say, because frankly, they're just not good. No. And Grim Feast, you can see fall of 2020, we get our first spike on these cards. From basically a bulk rare to some number that seems to be real. They gradually taper off. Emberwild by like summer, fall that year. Same with Grim Feast. And then boom, we have another increase. And that is going into 2022 in the spring in both cases. And in the case of a lot of these chaff reserve list cards, as you get into tax season and you start to see the increase, they have only dropped since. This is not something that we're going to see again. Those were unique circumstances that this became cyclical. These cards are not good. I'm basically saying, hey, if this is something that you've done for a while, such as myself, I think I have I don't even know how many Halls of Mist sitting somewhere in Soldevi excavations, but I guess that one's real. But this is not something you necessarily need to keep an eye on anymore. No. These are not cards that are going to be world-breaking, barring something being printed that makes them absolutely busted. But you can't really plan on that, can you? So we're done, guys. It's over. The slums are closing. Gentrification has hit. We're only cash money from here on out. These cards are not good. Ignore. Get rid of them now, because it's seemingly only going to continue with a downtrend from here. We've had a year and a half now, almost 2 years basically, to see this trend repeat itself, and it hasn't.
Nope.
So I think it's safe to say that that was a circumstance of the money train, and that's not how it is anymore.
Nope. I think it's fine. You can pause buying on the low end. There were some people that wanted to make hay on that, and that's fine as long as there are people out there who are looking to complete sets, complete collections, be the greater fool, hold the bag, whatever you want to call it. And that it's always good to remind people to reevaluate your stances, to evaluate your holdings, and make the necessary changes. Where you can. I can't remember the name of the fallacy. Is it gambler? It's not gambler's fallacy. Sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, sunk cost fallacy. Yeah. Look, man, the cash is more valuable at this point. Out them at a loss if you have to. This ship has sailed.
Or just toss them somewhere, never to be seen again, and then
turn them into Sarkhan's Unsealings.
Yeah, if and when you can. For me,
I don't know that that's great advice either, but that's what I'm saying.
And that's the bottom line. So for me this week, I'm actually looking at playable cards compared to.
Good for you.
Right? Yeah. No. What a trend.
You should. Most people should.
Yeah. And we're sticking it out with Herald's Horn. 3 mana artifact. First printed in Commander 2017. When it ETBs, choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 colorless less to cast. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. So this card, does a lot for 3 mana. It can add up pretty quickly. Now, I added this to my list in May of this year, and CK was buying 24 from Commander 17 at $4.30, and there were 145 on TCG, 145 listings with a market of $6.57. Back in August, CK was buying 20 at $6. Sorry, they had a retail supply of 20 at $6. The buy number is 23 at $2. So buying less at less. As of right now, CK is buying exactly 0 from 2017 for surprisingly also 0. And they have 4 in stock. However, they are buying 22 copies of the Warhammer version for $3, and they are buying 74 copies of the Commander Masters version at $3.50. So this is basically CK saying, this is the version that we're selling through, so we're just going to keep buying that version, and we're going to out it. The difference in retail between the C17 and Warhammer is 50 cents. And the Warhammer version is 50 cents more expensive.
Yeah.
The Commander Masters version, though, is 50 cents cheaper. That one makes sense. The Warhammer one just has weird Warhammer art. So maybe that's the pull to this. But from at least a CK standpoint, why people are buying that version versus the C17, I can't tell you. I can just tell you that CK is still seeing demand across other versions, especially at the Commander Masters version. And you can't go wrong buying into any of these versions. C17 is just the one I was tracking at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Now on TCG Player, there are 105 listings with a market price of $4. So we dropped in listings by about 30%, and also saw a reduction in price by about 20%.
Yeah.
So that one's interesting. Now to actually talk about the card. So I'm pretty sure we already discussed what this card does. Like literally and figuratively. It just plays in Typal decks. That's all this is. That's all it does. All you're doing is playing this in Typal. If you're not, then you're doing it wrong. Now, this plays like in everything from like generic dragon decks all the way down to things like Typal with the Commander Morphon the Boundless.
Yeah.
And it plays in big types to small types, meaning something as small as like cats all the way up to something like dinosaurs. Cool. Herald's Horn provides a nice mana value reduction on top of a pseudo Howling Mine if your creature density is high enough, or you can manipulate the top card of your library well enough. That's it. Yep. That's all the card does. It's fantastic. Now, this additional velocity lets you play longer games against more spell-centric decks, which utilize other more consistent draw engines. And this is why I like Herald's Horn over something like Urza's Incubator. While Incubator does provide a larger mana value reduction, playing well in Typal decks that are generally high mana value decks, like dragons, dinosaurs, and angels, Incubator doesn't provide that extra bit of velocity. So you will see them played side by side to really get that benefit. So whenever we're slated to get Typal-based Commander products or Typal-centric / synergistic sets, I like re-upping on Herald's Horn because it's just kind of an easy look.
Yeah.
Timeline-wise, we're trying to get ahead of the Ixalan spoilers, which just started today. We know there are going to be vampires, merfolk, and dinosaurs in the main set, and the Commander deck themes were spoiled as well, which is going to contain those 3 types. So we're really just hoping to dodge a reprint in one or more of those decks. And right now, Ixalan is being spoiled, both halves. And so we're not really sure what's going to happen with Herald's Horn. If we don't get hit with a reprint, we should be able to turn these around pretty quickly into that crowd once they start rebuilding, upgrading, etc. They're the new decks or existing decks, and maybe even seeing a content creator bump as well, because people like the Star City crew, like Commander Clash and the Command Zone, do take these decks and either run them as is or upgrade them, or take new cards and plug them into old decks to feature. So there's the opportunity we see Herald's Horn in there as well, and we get, that nice bump from them. If we do get hit by a reprint, it'll probably take 3 months at a minimum to break even and profit at about 6 months. So there could be a little bit of a wait here. Now, velocity across all versions is pretty slow, but supply of almost all versions should drain within a month or two if we don't see new quantity injected into the market. That's how few there are. For whatever reason, this card just keeps sneaking under the radar because it sells pretty slowly, but because of that, it doesn't trigger any alarms anywhere. It doesn't really hit stocks, etc. The only reason I found this was because C17 was on CK's hot list one day, and when I dug in, I'm like, yeah, of course, this makes sense. It's just draining slowly over time. Like, people want this card, they want to play with this card, they enjoy this card. There's just not a huge rush to this card because while Typal is a theme, it's not like, there's so many ways to play Typal. There's so many types, and it just becomes like overwhelming and watered down, and so people might not just gravitate towards those decks. They wanted to play something else. They want to play, just big dumb spells, or they wanted to play something a little more controlling, or the theme that they're going to play is something like Landfall, which spans types because it's a keyword ability, that kind of stuff. And you really need that draw from either a commander deck or a set to pull people back and remind them, like, hey, Typal is fine to play in commander. You should really be thinking about it. And you have seen us talk about this from time to time. I think the last time we spent any amount of time looking at Typal cards was in New Capenna when Giada was spoiled. We spent a lot of time talking about Angels, right? I talked about Atali and the dinosaur decks that it can go in. Like, this is the same kind of thing. Whenever we get this pull, it's always nice to remember, like, hey, there are a bunch of Typal cards that actually work really well that are pretty agnostic. Like I mentioned, Urza's Incubator in here as well. That's a good look. It's just the barrier to entry on that card is a lot higher than Herald's Horn. Now, reprint equity. This lives in Commander products, period, ended. So we see a reprint every now and again. We can expect to get hit once every 2 years or so, sometimes multiple times in a year. So we do need to be mindful of that. We could be getting this spoiled with, again, the Ixalan decks. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing overall. The tribes in Ixalan have existed for so long that there's opportunity for people to take this card out of your binder to put in their existing decks alongside the singles they will be buying from these new decks.
Yeah.
You don't need to go out and buy the dinosaur deck that's going to be half or more reprints from the original Ixalan block if you already have all those dinosaurs. You just go out and buy the ones you want. Cool. And if this is where Herald's Horn is and you don't already have one, well, then you could just trade it from me or buy my copy off TCG Player. Awesome. So I don't think we really have to worry too much about reprint equity here because, like I said, based on the stocks graph that I pulled up earlier, you look at all versions. Whenever a reprint happens, 3 months to parity, a little more than that for profit. And we're still riding high. People are buying this card almost as if they expect it to not be in these commander decks. So awesome. We're in a great space because of that. By quantity overall, because reprint equity is so high at the moment, I'm only looking to pull up to about a dozen, I think, which means buying probably another 4+. It seems like every time I pick up a commander collection, this card is in it, or every time I engage with a commander draft set, it seems to be in it. So I have a couple floating through there. So that's where I would be happy, sitting at about a dozen available for trade or resale.
Yeah. I think this is great. The really interesting thing about this is when you talk about reprint equity, you know how many times this card has been printed since January of 2022?
4 times?
5. Lord of the Rings, March of the Machine, Commander Masters, Universes Beyond Warhammer, Battle for Baldur's Gate. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that tells me is that outside of Universes Beyond, which was a pre-con product, all of those were collector booster sets, which means that this market is kind of just where it is. Yeah. Because obviously Lord of the Rings was the best-selling, most open set in the history of Magic, and that version is still barely under $4. So I would feel pretty bearish about this one. Because you're right, it does recover pretty quickly. It does have casual appeal as well as invisible appeal.
Yeah, that's the harder one to track down.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, while yes, we seem to be getting this pretty regularly and we're obviously about to be on some tribal sets, I still don't necessarily think that turns me off from the card. I think it's great. It was also nice because this is one of those cards that first kind of highlighted, look at some of these uncommons in Commander products.
Yeah.
Because originally, I mean, there was a time where this card was $30 before it hit its first Jumpstart reprint. And, there's a price history to it, and I think it's great. I love it. I would be maybe a little bit more bearish, but I also slumlorded reserve list for way too long. So,
that's fine. I don't think there's a problem on being bearish. You just have to want to basically take the risk on sitting on these for that long, or taking the time to slowly out them, because I don't think there are a lot of typo players at every LGS. They're there.
Yeah, they are.
Absolutely.
But they may not be, 5 tribal decks. So
yeah, I think those are that's more of the Invisibles crowd. So that's a really good call out. This is Invisibles in a different way than we usually talk about, because when we engage with the conversation about the Invisibles, we talk about them as the kitchen table crowd. They're not self-identifying to EDH rec or additional resources, etc. They just kind of do their own thing. But I always think of them more as like constructed players, in the sense that they just want to play 4 copies of whatever in their kitchen table decks, and just non-competitively, not Commander players. But that is probably where the majority of like typo players actually exist, which is outside the LGS ecosystem, which does make them invisible.
Yeah.
And that's probably where these cards are going to be sold, to a lot of those Invisibles. So that is actually a very good reminder. So anything else before we cut out?
No, I think that about does it.
So for at MTG Beancast on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and YouTube, I am at Halt, I am Reptar, you are
at Thirsty Sizzler.
And we'll see you next week.
Fuck, that was the wrong one. God damn it.